going on, everybody? I'm Jason and you're watching Tennessee Mountain Homestead. Today we're back out in the shop to continue work on Blackout, my 1967 Sears Custom 6. Last episode we got this Yamaha Breeze front suspension installed. Go back and check it out if you haven't seen it. This episode we're going to make this thing into a roller because right now the shock absorbers are not connected to anything and this thing is sitting on a jack underneath the chassis. So I have a couple of ideas. It's going to be hard to explain, but if you're willing to hang out for a while, we're going to get to work on this and I'll talk you through it as we go. Let's get busy. So here's the plan. This here is the grill for the Sears Custom. It's made out of cast aluminum. It's pretty stout, it's pretty thick. I'd say it's at least 1/8 of an inch in the thinnest parts. It kind of reminds me of an old Evinrude motor. When I was growing up, my dad had a few of those on some boats, and the exterior of the motor kind of reminded me of this, and when the paint chipped off especially, like in here. But anyway, I kind of want to incorporate this into the support for the shocks. Now let me explain. This structure is in no way going to take the weight of the tractor or any impacts or anything from the shock absorbers. However, I want to build a steel structure incorporated inside of this to kind of hide it so that when it's bolted down on here, the steel will take the weight of the tractor through the shock absorbers. Now how I'm going to do that is carefully draw out and form a piece of plate steel to fit in the bottom. Then we'll come up the sides with plate steel to a certain point. And then on the exterior, on the outside here, I'm gonna have something clean here, a way to bolt through, and then I'll have my shock mount here. And on the inside, from here to this side, I'll have a support. So the shocks are connected by steel, but all behind the grill. Now there's a couple things I need to think about, like the way the thing bolts to the frame. There's two like standoffs right here, and there's a space so that when this is on the frame, it can rock, and there's an air gap on the sides and in the middle. So what I've done is I figured out where those standoffs are, and I've got the correct thickness of steel pieces that I'm gonna strategically place on the top of the frame. I'm gonna weld them in, you know, not fully, just a few tack welds around the perimeter of these. Then I'll grind them flat, and when I bolt this back on, it'll be sitting completely, it'll be supported across the entire bottom, because the bolts that hold this grill down will simultaneously hold down my steel structure that's inside this. And I'm gonna add a couple of bolts on the very outside. So I've already got all this stuff cleaned up, ready to go. I'm gonna buzz these in. We're gonna get this thing bolted back on and start measuring for our interior structure. All right, just like that, I got it done. Now, when I take the grill and I set it where it needs to be, it's sitting on there flat. It doesn't have any more rock to it. And I'm gonna add a couple of more bolts into this before it's done. Some something else I'd like to say is the last couple of weeks, I've been using JobSmart flap discs. I needed some. I asked my wife while she was out one day to pick me up some more. She went, I forget where she went, but she had a bulk pack of them. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, just get them. So I've been using those. They work, they got me through, but they're not anywhere near what these things are. So yeah, Diablo Steel Demon flap disc. I just put one on the grinder like a half hour ago. And what would have taken that JobSmart 5 minutes to do, this thing just, I didn't even have to push. It just took the paint off, sanded the metal down. I just flattened all this out with ease. And it didn't even take any material away. The JobSmart ones, in some cases, just flew apart. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the next step. I'm gonna get this thing bolted back up and we're gonna start laying out for the internal structure. Hey guys, it's been a couple of hours since our last clip. I've kind of been bouncing back and forth between working on this, and we just got a opposed twin Magnum 18 Kohler motor. It's Steffen's. He bought it in unknown condition. Well, we knew it was running. We didn't know how good or what it was missing, so he bolted on a bunch of stuff and we got that motor running over there on the bench. I'll show you that in a second. Well, actually, check it out right now. It's right here. So this here is the Kohler Magnum 18 opposed twin. We just had it running. We took a clip on my phone, and I'll cut that in right now. Check that out. Kohler Magnum 18 opposed twin. Anyway, so come back over to the front of the tractor. So you saw in the beginning of the video where I had welded some plates to the top of the frame to take up the airspace in between the bottom of the grill and the frame. So in the meantime, since that took place, I made this plate right here. This is 3/16 bar. These are the two mounting bolts right here that you see in there. Those are the stock mounting bolts for the grill. Now, this thing right now is sandwiched in between the frame and this 3/16 plate. I also welded some spacers to go in between the thicker part of the grill to take up that airspace, because I'm gonna add bolts. I'm gonna add 3 bolts, actually. The next thing I've got to do is get up here and drill these bolts in. I'm gonna use all grade 8 hardware. So you see where I'm going with this. Now we have an established foundation that's gonna be super tight, grabbing the tractor, and it just happens to incorporate the grill sandwiched in between it. The next thing I'm gonna do after this is all bolted down and in place is come off of the edge of these plates here where they get near the edge, and I'm gonna come up with more steel. And then there's gonna be a support bar in between where the shocks mount on the outside of this. I have an idea in my mind and I'm gonna follow it through. I think it's gonna be super clean. And so once I drill this, I'm gonna call it a night, because I don't even have the new shocks I ordered a few days ago. I got some adjustable shocks. I may or may not have mentioned that in the beginning of the video. Anyway, I've got shocks coming tomorrow. I gotta go pick them up at, they're coming by through Amazon, US Postal Service. So anyways, once I have those shocks, I'll know better where we're gonna mount them on the outside. But anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow at some point. What's up, guys? It's the next morning and we're gonna get a bright and early start on this thing here. So far this morning, I came out and I got rid of all the mill scale off of this piece that I made that's gonna clamp and sandwich the grill in between this and the frame. And I also want to say, please excuse me if I was a little bit low energy last night, a little bit, you know, under the weather, because I was. Just the way she goes sometimes. Anyway, we got Duke Boy out here today. Good boy. We got Duke, we got Lucille, we got Stefan, we got Ethan behind the camera. we're gonna get this thing going because I got those shocks coming later on today, and I wanna have this thing completely ready as far as I can take it before those shocks get here. I wanna have this thing sitting on its own weight without a jack underneath it by the end of tonight. So, without further commentary, let's get to it. All right, so that's what it's like right there. This is my base structure for my shock towers. And I must say, this grill is absolutely super rigid, but we're not gonna trust this grill to hold any of the weight, obviously, because it can't. So I need to build a structure inside, and I've already got a couple pieces here that are gonna do just that. We're gonna build off of this, and you'll see as we progress, but I'm gonna do gussets. We're gonna do a cross beam member here. I gotta put the engine back in to make sure that my cross beam here that connects the shock towers together doesn't interfere with the oil cooler on the motor or the oil filter. I gotta be able to have room for that stuff. So we got that to worry about, but I think it's gonna be just fine. Clean workshop is key to a top quality outcome of your project. It's good to know that, and always remember, boys and girls, knowing is half the battle. Plus, I really hate stepping in metal dust.
That was the corniest thing ever.
I'm a huge believer in preheating the metal, because right now it's 45 degrees in here, and also when you start to preheat it with the torch, you can see the moisture running away off the surface. So I think it just gives for a better quality weld. The machine definitely sounds happier, more like fried bacon when I preheat as opposed to not preheating. But even if you don't, I'm sure it'll be fine, because it instantly gets freaking screaming hot. But yeah, always keep one of these torches handy. A few minutes later, a little bit of grinding, a little bit of cardboard aided drafting, and now we have gussets. And as you can see here, I got them to be perfectly identical in dimensions, and I've got them beveled down to a nice edge. So that way the weld can get in there and penetrate perfectly. So what I'm gonna do next, put these in place, tack them in, and then I think I need a little bit of front gussets too, but I gotta put the engine back in and make sure that it's not gonna interfere with anything with the oil cooler and the oil filter. Also, after I put these in, it's really all I can do for now until I get the longer shocks that I had ordered. So in the meantime, we're gonna work on Stefan's motor. All right, I like it about right there. So let me go ahead and send a couple of nice tacks. I'm working on welding out at least one side of these gussets because I need to take this structure back out of here and weld the front side. And I'm just so afraid it's gonna move or pull, you know? So what I'm doing is playing musical bolts here. I'm taking out a bolt so I can weld behind it, putting it back in, moving the next one, and I'm gonna drag the puddle right along the front side here. Then I think I'm gonna take it out to weld the up and downhill because I'm not so great at that and it never comes out. I mean, I'm no professional welder, guys, there's no secret there. So it's so much easier for me to weld flat. And I just wanted to give you an update. That's how it's doing, that's how it's going right now. Like I said, I need to take this structure back out of here and weld the front side, which I can't get to while it's in here. So I'm gonna take this piece of threaded rod and I'm gonna cut it so it fits across the top here to hold these, because right now these pieces of steel are flat up against the aluminum. And I don't want this to move. I'm so afraid it's gonna move. So, like I said, I'm gonna cut this to fit in between and I'm gonna tack weld this piece of steel 1/2-inch rod between them, and that way it should help hold its shape.
Look at that.
It's about probably 3 to 5 pounds, somewhere in there. Not too bad, but it's necessary because you can't have something with nothing, right? I'm trying to make this thing lightweight, and it's got to have some steel in it to do what I'm trying to do. Well, there it is. There's the beginning structure of my shock towers. It's still piping hot, but I believe this will definitely support the weight of the tractor, because that's what it's really doing. It's basically suspending the tractor by those bolts through the shocks up to this point here. Now obviously it's not complete, so I got to figure out where the shocks are going to mount on the outside, and I'm going to have a piece of pipe or DOM tubing going from this side to that side, wherever the shock mount happens to end up. And that's going to, box it in. It's gonna connect the shocks together. And then I can build off of this, maybe in the future, and I can come up to the bottom of the hood. I don't know, maybe make a roll cage of some sort for the engine, for the hood. But before it's all said and done too, I can't just leave this thing to stand alone and trust it not to go like this. So I'm gonna have to have some sort of tubing to go from here, probably from this tube that goes across, back to the structure, back to the main structure, the frame. But that's down the road. This is gonna hold it for now and make it a roller so I can move it around and I can have it on its wheels. And then once the engine's in, the steering, it comes together more, more and more, I'll know where to run my tubes back to the chassis so that this thing here is located and fixed in space from the top as well, or at least from the height of the shock towers. So we're moving right along. I'm gonna bolt this thing back in and see what we can do next. We just got back from picking up these shock absorbers. As you can see, they are quite a bit bigger than the stock ones. They also have more travel and they have an adjustment. They've got 5 different settings. Right now they're set to the weakest or softest setting. So I've already got one in place here and I've got my ride height up a little bit. Like I've got the jack holding the chassis up and the control arms currently have a slight, they're elevated, if that makes sense. Because I know that once the engine's on there and I let the weight of the tractor go on the shocks, they're probably gonna squish just a touch. Because I can actually feel it. They do have a little bit of give. So I think that's a safe, I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, guys. I have no idea. I'm just kind of, shooting from the hip on this one. So I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna make a piece of steel on the outside here that I can weld my shock brackets to. And what that's gonna be is this over here. So we've got the ATV frame left over. This is where the shocks used to bolt to on the ATV. So what I'm gonna do is cut this off. So I've got this bracket right here. And then I'll make sure it's nice and 90 degrees. And I'll make sure it's square on the back where I cut it. And then this will be welded to the plate that I fixed to the side of the engine of the cowl and the grill. I've got a plan in my head, bear with me. So let me get this cut off and I've got a nice clean plan to mount it on there and I will see you in a minute. It's been a while since the last clip, but I'm making progress. One thing I did off camera was I had to extend the bars that are on the inside of this. If you guys are ever at the scrapyard or at the steel place and you think to yourself, I should probably get that extra footage of steel, do it. Because I didn't, I thought I was gonna be good, and now I'm scabbing stuff together. But it came out pretty nice nonetheless. So I did that, and then I also made these brackets that are gonna go on the outside here, just like you see this one. I've already got it one bolt through. And what this is gonna do is weld to my shock mount. So I'm gonna get these 2 bolted on and then lean the shock in, take measurements, make sure both of them are absolutely symmetrical. And then I'm gonna weld the shock mount to the outside of this plate. Obviously, I can't weld aluminum, especially this old cast aluminum. I just don't have that kind of welder or skill set or technology. So we've got to laminate steel on aluminum. And that's what I'm doing right now. I got to drill this bottom hole. I got to take this one over there and get it in the same exact spot. And then I'm going to come back, like I said, mock everything up on the shocks, lean them in. I'll probably just spot weld so I don't melt the bushings on the shocks, but I'll spot weld those in place, take these back off, weld them on the bench, put them back on. After that, we've got to get our cross brace. And then we're really close to putting the engine back in here and seeing what kind of squish we have, if any, if this thing's gonna give with these shocks. All right, this is the moment that I've been waiting for. I have to admit I'm a little bit nervous, but I think I got everything lined up perfect. So what I did, I took a nice piece of straight, solid, square, and I laid it across the frame right here. And so I taken my measurement straight up to the center of the bolt. And I've got 7 5/8 there, and I had to put a little space under the tire, a pair of pliers to make it match. But I've got 7 5/8 here, right to the center of the bolt. And then my shocks are gonna be 3/4 of an inch to the center of the bracket they're bolted to, off the edge of the cowling or grill. I'm going with that. I'm just going to tack weld these shock mount brackets on here for now. Strong enough that I can put weight on this thing, because I don't want to burn them in solid right now. Because what I'm going to do is tack them in both sides. I need to temporarily weld a brace in between the inside of this, because this is going to flex no matter what, a little bit. So I need to put my brace in now, a temporary one. And then I need to set the engine in here and take the jack out from under it and see what happens. See what kind of squish I get or don't get. I don't know. So let's get started. Well, I ain't gonna do none of that stuff I just said, at least not at the moment, because I just stuck a bar in here just to kind of hold it. I didn't weld it, but I couldn't resist. I wanted to see if this thing is going to squish, what was gonna happen. So I had it slightly jacked up so that the arms were not horizontal, they were kind of going down, because I figured there would be some squish a little bit. And sure enough, that was the case. And that's not even, the engine's not even in here yet, and that's 100 pounds. So, check this out. I don't know, guys. That's on the softest setting. If I need to turn and adjust and get a little bit more preload, I can. But it seems to be absolutely perfect right now. I don't know. I've never done a suspension before, but I like it. I think it's going to be just fine right there. So yeah, I got to put the engine back in this, and I've got to take these back off and weld around the shock mount. But otherwise, and then yeah, these bolts that I have holding in here, these are 5/16 grade 8. I'm going to countersink these plates and put countersunk screws out, probably Allen screws in here, so that they're so it's a cleaner look than having the head of bolts. Not that it matters that much, we'll see. But yeah, I am stoked right now. I was worried about it. I was honestly a little bit worried, but I think that everything's going to be just fine. This thing is doing what it's supposed to do. All right, real quick, these tires were on this ATV when I got it. They were dry rotted, they have holes in them. So, but we have air in them right now, they're leaking out. I just wanted to show, now that there's some pressure, what the switch really looks like. And you see the engines in here too. So I'd say that's pretty good. That's what I'm going with, and we can always tighten the shocks up with more preload. And yeah, I'm gonna get back to work on this. All right, I'm getting ready to weld the next one. And like I said, I'm no welding professional, but I've done it enough to get a really good feel for it. So when you're welding something like this, the base metal here is 1/8 inch and it's flat. This metal here, the shock mount from the ATV, is probably close to 1/8, but because of the way it works, if I was to concentrate my puddle on this piece, it'd probably blow through it. What I do is, I come in and I concentrate my puddle on the base metal, on this flat piece, like this with the welder, and I push as I go, and it melts into that steel, and it makes a nice, clean, solid, you know, strong fusion. I think it looks great. So just wanted to go ahead and say that, but I'm getting ready to do it.
But wait, there's more.
And I preheated it too. And I don't know about your environment, but here, as soon as I start heating it up, you can just see the water evaporating off.
Very nice.
You want to make sure you put it in while it's still red hot and you can't touch it without pliers. What's up, guys? It's the next morning. I was up late last night just out here staring at this thing and thinking, because the next thing I've got to do is connect this side to this side with some sort of a pipe or a structure. Stefan suggested that I use some of this 5/8 round solid bar that I've got, which isn't a bad idea. I could also use 3/4 inch EMT, which would be lighter. But I don't know. I'm still thinking about it because I've got a couple of obstacles in here. I've got the oil filter, which I can't block. I've got the oil cooler right here. And there's these oil hoses that go from the block to the oil cooler. So all this stuff is kind of just in the way, and I need to go around it. So it can't, nothing I put in here can go straight across. It's got to have an offset no matter what, or a bend, you know, a saddle or something. So I'm leaning on this stuff because it's super strong. It isn't that heavy, and I can bend it tight with a torch. Whereas 3/4 inch EMT, I'm stuck using a pipe bender, and you know how it's not very, you know, the bends are long, and I can't do a short radius. So I think I just talked myself into using this. Let's get to it. All right, guys, I got my offset where I think I want it. It's nice and flat, it's symmetrical, but this thing is scorching hot right now. So let's take it out to the old water bath, and maybe it'll help harden it up a little bit. I don't know. I'm no swordsmith, but I've seen one on YouTube. We're good. I've got the length really close, but I don't want to keep cutting it with a bandsaw because I might just take too much off. So I'm just gonna chase it in with a flap disc. And then once it's in place to the length, I need to bevel out the end of these so the weld can bond really well to this. I got this thing where I want it. It fits right in and it clears the oil cooler. So the next thing I'm gonna do is fire up the welder and tack it in place. Well, there it is, my integrated shock tower. I think it's gonna hold up just fine. And for all you structural engineers out there, fear not, because like I might have mentioned earlier, by the time this build's done, I will have some sort of bars that go from here back to the frame so it can't move like this. I mean, not that it really wants to too much, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bolt this thing back in. I'll see you in a minute. Shock tower engaged. That's about as far as I can take it for right now, because I've got so much other stuff to worry about on this tractor. I can't get into all the intricacies of anything else I may or may not want to add to this. Definitely not the bars that are going to go back to the frame to stiffen up this from going back and forth, which, guys, this thing is rigid. It is very rigid. But the next thing I got to do on this tractor is get the steering situated. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. I think the hardest part is going to be getting the steering shaft from the steering wheel to go down. It's like a 70-degree angle. It has to transition to go under the tractor. The steering, I'm going to go with a rack and pinion, a very small compact one, and it says it's for VWs and dune buggies. They've got a whole bunch of different lengths of racks. I still got to figure out which one I'm going with. But when I put this thing together, part of the reason the wheelbase is the where it is, because the stock tie rods fit right in here. Well, they would fit, but I got to get them in between. But if you look right here on the control arm, this piece of metal, this brace, has a bend in it, and that's so the tie rod can come through here and connect to the spindle. So when I put this in here, I made it so that lines up with the old axle pivot support on the front of the tractor, and it should be right about perfect. So that's my next mission, but it's going to be a while because I need to buy that. I need to buy the steering parts. I need to buy the universal joints. I need to figure out a steering wheel, all of it. So it may be a couple of weeks before I do another video on this. Hopefully not, but it is what it is. So with that, we're going to close the video out. If you're new to the channel, please like, comment, subscribe. All you existing viewers, especially you guys that watch this stuff to the end, thank you, I appreciate it. Drop a comment below. If you see something, have any good advice for me, I always love that, I appreciate it. And as always, I'm Jason, this is Tennessee Mountain Homestead, and I'll see you on the next one.